It is now beginning to get very, very clear that there's a massive cover-up going on. Rod Rosenstein now has 4 people that have identified him as saying that he wanted to wear a wire against the President of the United States of America in the hopes that they could somehow use that to invoke the 25th Amendment. And then, of course, he decided he doesn't want to testify under oath, even in a recorded session, which is what they normally do, before Congress last week, and he doesn't show up. All the information that has been subpoenaed now, the obstruction continues, and you just heard Jim Jordan articulate what that is. That means the FISA warrants, the 302s, Gang of 8 information. We have Representative John Ratcliffe talking about Fusion GPS founder Glenn Simpson. Well, he's now saying and indicated he's going to plead the 5th. He's not saying a word anymore. He was on Fox News Sunday telling Maria Bartiromo that Glenn Simpson is in real legal jeopardy in all of this. He also confirmed that the FBI has evidence that directly refutes the premise of a Trump-Russia probe. In other words, that there's been and remains exculpatory evidence. There was a great piece by Jonathan Turley, the 3 reasons Mueller may not charge Trump with obstruction. Apparently he's not asking any questions about it, but sticking exclusively to whether or not there was any type of collusion, which we all know the answer to. You have one top Republican lawmaker now saying the FBI failed to provide a federal surveillance court with important evidence. Well, we've known that now for a long time, and we know that 4 FISA court judges were handed information that was supposed to be verified and corroborated, ended up being Hillary Clinton's bought and paid for Russian lies that was put together by Fusion GPS, interestingly, funneled money through Perkins Coie, a law firm, the hiring of Christopher Steele, a foreign national. He doesn't even stand by the information in the dossier. And it was the bulk of information to get 4 FISA warrants against the Trump campaign associate in the lead up to the 2016 race. All of this comes down to some simple, basic, fundamental things. And they never told the FISA judges that it was Hillary Clinton that paid for this information. And it's unbelievable that this could be happening in this country, but it looks like we're finally beginning to get to the bottom of it. At least I hope so. Jason Chaffetz is with us, former congressman, now a Fox News contributor, author of the New York Times bestseller, The Deep State. We have Victoria Tunsing and Joe DeGeneva of DeGeneva and Tunsing with us. Thank you both for being here. Let's start with you, Jason Chaffetz, because this is your wheelhouse. And it seems to me that it doesn't matter what Congress requests. As they seek to do their job of oversight, they're never going to get the information from the Department of Justice, and they're not going to get the people they need to talk in front of them under oath.
Well, the hard part about when you issue a subpoena, when I was the chairman of the Oversight Committee, I could issue a subpoena, but the only way to enforce it is through the Department of Justice. And so the weight of the paper really isn't worth much because the DOJ won't enforce its own subpoena, the subpoena issued by Congress. The name that people need to also familiarize themselves with is Mark Elias. Mark Elias was counsel at Perkins Coie. He was counsel for the DNC. He was counsel for Hillary Clinton. He was counsel for the Podesta Group. He was involved there. This guy sits in the middle of a lot of these transactions in the movement of money, and I think more and more you'll start to see his name along with, Orr and Simpson and all these others.
Well, I think that, the fact that Simpson is now saying, Victoria, that, he's going to plead the 5th and can get away with that, make him come in and plead the 5th. The idea that they could just threaten to plead the 5th and not have to actually go through with it, I think is important.
They should make him show up and do it in front of the TV cameras, plead the 5th. It's ridiculous to accept a letter from the lawyers. And I hope, Jason, you're talking to your former friends and telling them to get him into the Congress to take the 5th. And I don't care if they're not going to enforce the subpoena, because I think there are other ways to figure out how to do it. You've got a subpoena. You subpoena first, and then you negotiate later. You don't say, oh my, he didn't show up. We were talking and trying to work it out. Now we have to think about subpoenaing. You subpoena, and then you say, you can't make it Wednesday, then you make it Thursday. I can't believe there's no cojones.
Well, I'm trying to understand. The president said that there would be declassification and all the materials that Jim Jordan was just talking about would be unredacted, and we'd have a chance to see the FISA warrants, the Gang of 8 information, the 302s between Bruce Orr and Christopher Steele, and how they wanted to funnel that information straight into Robert Mueller's office, Joe DeGenova. But, you know, the idea, why do I think, even with you and Victoria as my attorneys, that I wouldn't get away with just saying, oh, I'm going to plead the fifth, leave me alone now, or not handing over subpoenaed materials to Congress?
Well, I don't think there's any question that Congress has dropped the ball on enforcing its own subpoenas. But let me just say this, because this is really important. All the names that you have heard, Michael Sussman, Mr. Elias Simpson, or all those people, they are key to everything that was done in the United States. What's fascinating is what happened in the United Kingdom, which the Congress hasn't and can't issue any subpoenas for. We now know that the FBI asked MI6 and the GCHQ to conduct electronic surveillance of American citizens on foreign soil without legal authority to do so. And that information was, in fact, the conversations of George Papadopoulos were intercepted. And in the course of intercepting those conversations, they found out that Papadopoulos was not interested in Hillary's emails or anything else, and they never gave that information to the FISA courts.
You know, it seems, Congressman Chaffetz, that every piece of the puzzle now is falling in place. I think we now understand what the insurance policy was. Lisa Page testifying that in the 9 months of the investigation leading up to the appointment of special counsel Robert Mueller, that they had no evidence of Trump-Russia collusion at all. And by the way, even her lover, Peter Strzok, said the same thing. He said, well, I'd be all in if there was something there. There's no there. And then all of a sudden, we find the media leak strategy that they discussed. And this is where Andrew McCabe comes in, James Baker comes in, and other people come in. And what we see is, again, it goes back to the Clinton bought and paid dossier. That dossier information is leaked out to the media, creating the impression that, in fact, there was Russia-Trump collusion. But they did it themselves. They took it's all, they were doing the leaking so that they can appoint the special counsel, so then the witch hunt could begin. I mean, is there any part of the puzzle that isn't clear to you? Because it's getting very clear to me.
No, it is becoming crystal clear, and that's why Jim Jordan is exactly right. The people that were in that meeting, and remember the timing of this meeting. This meeting happens directly after Mr. Comey is relieved of his duties, but just before Mr. Mueller is put into place. And you have to understand who's in that meeting, what was discussed. It sounds like Baker is being the most candid about what was going on there. But each of the people in that meeting should be brought in for their own deposition, transcribed under oath before Congress. So you don't have these 5-minute little, asking of questions. When you do those, and I've been in these, they can go for an hour for the Republicans, then the Democrats get time, then another hour for Republicans, and you can really get in-depth information if they would do it that way.
Well, Victoria, I think that's true, and that's right, and that's just, and that's fair, but the obstruction continues. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back more with Jason Chaffetz and Joe DeGenova, also Victoria Tunsing with us. All right, as we continue with Jason Chaffetz and Victoria Tunsing and Joe DeGenova with us, look, I think the hope is this. I think the hope for the deep state is that they get to November, that we get to Election Day in 22 days, and the Democrats win back the House, because they know at that point all these investigations will close, they'll shut them down, they'll stop them in their tracks, and then the witch hunt against Donald Trump begins anew, and they'll try to impeach the president.
And then if we get somebody with certitude in the Justice Department, they can do a criminal investigation. There's also civil litigation that's possible. For example, Carter Page. The discovery in a case that Carter Page could bring would open up all kinds of information about what
How long would that discovery take? Because I know Carter Page is moving forward with the lawsuit.
Well, it just depends on the judge where you file the case, whether it's a slow docket or a rocket docket. But none of this could have been done, Sean, without the complicit cooperation of the media, without those journalistics of David Korn and Mike Isikoff putting out the information, just regurgitating the information that they received from the people who were doing this behind the scenes.
I can't believe that there's not enough outrage to realize what has actually gone on here. Is you have a dossier, a series of reports put together, known as the dossier by Christopher Steele. That's Hillary Clinton DNC funneled money through a law firm, Perkins Coie, hiring Fusion GPS, an op research firm. Then they hire Christopher Steele. And they put together unverified, uncorroborated, and mostly now what turns out to be debunked information, Joe DeGeneva. First, they use it to hurt Donald Trump in the general election. You know, the stories about, Russian hookers urinating in the bed in a Moscow Ritz-Carlton, for example. That's all being leaked, even by high members within our intelligence community, for the purposes of influencing the election with a series of lies and propaganda. Then the same information is used again to create a special counsel and to really delegitimize and hopefully dismantle the presidency of Donald Trump. That's what it came down to.
Well, there's no doubt about it, Sean, that as Victoria and I have been saying now for 18 months, there was a brazen plot to exonerate Hillary Clinton illegally, and then if she lost the election, to frame Donald Trump. And that is exactly what they did. These people were motivated by an animus toward Donald Trump, which led them to fabricate evidence, to use foreign intelligence services to fabricate evidence, to wiretap Americans overseas. And then when they found exculpatory evidence, for example, that would have favored George Papadopoulos, they hid it from the FISA court. There is no doubt that a number of people, from John Brennan, James Clapper, on down, all the way into the White House, committed crimes. And if Jeff Sessions and Rod Rosenstein cannot figure out a way to do this, and by the way, John Huber out in Utah, that's a head fake. He's doing nothing. 6 months without a report. Unless he brings a bunch of indictments tomorrow, he's useless. This is an outrage what Jeff Sessions and Rosenstein have tolerated. I know the president's waiting till after the election to get rid of them, and I say to hell with both of them.
All right, thank you. What's going to happen, Jason? You see a new attorney general down the road?
Not soon enough. I just put up a piece that I wrote about why Sessions can't go soon enough. He's worthless. He's there in name only. There really should be a second special counsel to look into Brennan and all these cast of characters we've been talking about over the last few minutes. The president needs that in place.
Well, can the president make that decision himself?
Yeah, absolutely. He can push that forward. And releasing the documents to Congress, absolutely.
Yep, I think all of that needs to happen. All right, 22 days before the election, we'll see what goes on from here. Thank you all for being with us.